biggest challenge was scalability. When you're in staffing, the number one lifeblood to your ability to grow is the ability to fund payrolls. So without having a true partnership with your money, then you really don't have the ability to go and grow and be successful, because most contracts are year-long contracts and you're going into the RFP knowing that you can be able to fund it in 4 or 5 months. So you've got to know today what you can do 4 or 5 months from now when the contract actually starts. So because staffing is an industry where it's not easy to get rid of an old company and put a new one in, because there's so many employees that are already there, that for them to switch over a whole 200 people, they got to know that from day one you can fund the payroll for those additional 200 people. So the ability to go up and surge quickly is something that we were able to do once Profitstars came into our system. I can now use reserve analysis to grow the business, because one thing about businesses is if you're waiting on a client to send you the money, then you don't have access to any of the money. So your growth is stalled. And in staffing and in transportation, if you're not growing, you're headed out of business, because the only way to continue to be more competitive is to lower your cost. And to lower your cost, you have to increase your volume. So without a Profitstars, you can't really go out and commit to volume. So you can never get better pricing, because nobody will allow you to get better pricing unless you can commit to volume. Number one, it allowed me to triple in size within 12 months, because that's very hard to do, especially when you're dealing with somebody else's money. It's one thing if you're just adding owner-operators, because that's them adding their trucks and you're just facilitating the freight. When you're doing staffing, you're saying, give me the deal, I'm going to get it funded. There's only 1 or 2 people involved, so it's a very lonely process in staffing, because no matter how many people you put to work, you need the money. And without the money, you can't get brick and mortar. Brick and mortar is because when you're recruiting people, you're either going to have word of mouth, or you're going to have line of sight, or you're going to have both. So before we had BusinessManager, we were all word of mouth. We didn't have enough money to go and get brick and mortar and to set up a big sign on a major street where people can just drive by and go, hey, look, there's a staffing agency. Now, because of BusinessManager, we have that ability. We know we get reserve analysis twice a month that allow us to cover any expenditures that come up, because they're nice double-digit deposits every other week that we get out of the reserve. So it's good that we can get our money up front for most of our receivables, and then within 2 weeks, we can start getting reserve analysis of money that's coming in to our lockboxes, and that allows us to sustain growth. The program has definitely helped us to raise the line. The banks are very hesitant about raising a line of credit without going through a whole bunch of red tape, and Profitstars streamlines that process. Everything that they need to compile, it's already in the Profitstars system. The aging of the receivables, what kind of clients I have, how long is the turn on it. Those things are things that as a company, I would have to house and reproduce every time I needed a line increase if Profitstars didn't manage it for me. My banker can go into Profitstars and print out everything she's about to ask me. By the time we do our meeting, she's already telling me the few things that she needs me to do. Everything else has come straight out of BusinessManager, and it's painted about 85% of the picture to underwriting. So it saves me from having to do a whole bunch of explaining. The numbers don't lie. A traditional line of credit allows you to go into a bank and say, here's what I'm going to need, and that's it. And they'll give you a loan approved on that. And then if you want to raise the amount, you got to go back through a whole nother approval. With BusinessManager, it allows the bank to feel comfortable without going back to committee every time. They know that BusinessManager is calling to make sure the receivables are coming in. They know that if they start getting close to that 60-day period, BusinessManager is going to alert you. Hey, you got some receivables that are going to cause your reserve analysis to go down, because they're going to have to keep 25% of your invoices instead of 10% because your clients are reaching that 60-day threshold. Then in that last 30 days, they start wearing you and the client out to make sure that you get those monies collected. Awesome. I met you guys through my banker. So imagine, for me, it was my banker leading me to something that would grow my business. And the first thing I'm thinking is well, that's why I'm here, to get the money. She's like, well, the money's only part of it. The ability to grow comes from having processes. Banks don't have processes for staffing companies. Banks have money. So somebody else has to come in with the processes. If a bank had to determine whether or not they would lend money to a staffing agency without somebody else explaining the ins and outs of how you're going to reward the money out and how you're going to collect the money in, banks would be 85% less friendly towards staffing agencies, because you're really asking a person to put money out there that's uncollateralized by any kind of true building, brick and mortar, a vehicle, something that's tangible. Staffing is a very untangible way to invest your money. So a bank has to feel like the controls make sense. And if they make sense, then it makes a bank more comfortable. So when the bank brought you and I together, they weren't convinced that they were going to do what they were going to do with me. They needed BusinessManager to show them how they could facilitate doing business with me. And that made all the difference in the world. Awesome. I can't think of one thing I don't like. Not one. I mean, it really shows you when money comes in, what you should probably get in your reserve analysis, what's about 60 days out. It lets you know everything you need to know. All you got to do is go in there, and it's very user-friendly. You can click on a button and get wealth of information. QuickBooks, you got to go through 30 different tabs to get kind of simple stuff. So Profitstars is very good.